What would the off-season be without more fishing drama in the fishing community? And nothing greater to keep you warm on a 9-degree January day than more fishing drama that just never seems to go away. But stay tuned for tonight's release of part 3 of State of the Industry, which kind of ties into this video, actually, with 6 Cents Fishing. And we're going to be talking about the rise of custom, which is going to be expanding even more in the next 2 years to an unbelievable presence in the overall sales of the fishing community that nobody is talking about. And the biggest reason why nobody's talking about that is you can't track it, right? You can't track like the Big Five. You can't track like sales. They're not public companies. You don't really know. They're side hustles. They're garage shops. They're workshops. They're TikTok sellers. They're everywhere. But they're the fastest growing sellers in the fishing community. And a lot of companies have taken notice, which is why this ties into our favorite angler of the offseason this year in all his drama and glory, Ben Milliken. And that is private equity. That is acquisitions, mergers, takeovers, buyouts. Why they are all happening? Because the growth is over here. It's not over here anymore in the big name brands that are sponsoring Bassmaster and Major League Fishing. That's the truth. Slick Johnson talks a lot about people don't want to hear the truth. People who come to this channel want to hear the truth. It's the only reason why they would come to this channel. They're not seeing me out on the lake and OHIB catching double digits, okay? That's not why they tune into this channel. They tune into this channel, and they tune into other channels, which I highly recommend, that do kind of like truth-telling for the fishing industry. Channels like Get Your Fish On, Steve over at Get Your Fish On, Cerebral Tackle. You know, there are plenty of podcasts, Wendell Fishing. There are plenty of podcasts that do truth-based things with their own opinions, but they're based in truth. So recently, you guys have probably seen this because I know a lot of people who subscribe to the channel here also most likely. You know, I know most likely you may follow Ben Milliken, but you're not an MFer by any stretch. Or you may also follow Luke Duncan, which I actually respect Luke Duncan's podcast. I've watched his podcast, you know, for a number of years. And it's interesting. Some of the questions that you have to ask yourself really are why someone chooses to go where they go during, you know, when things go bad, like a Bassmaster or MLF or, you know, or a cheating scandal or some kind of crazy happens in an event and a guy gets DQ'd. You know, could have been Bassmaster last year. A lot of DQs, a lot of stuff, whether it's Trey McKinney, JT Tompkins, right? A lot of stuff going on, or an MLF, right? Over the last year or two. Where do they go when they want to talk about it? And do they really want to talk about it? Like it's interesting that of all the places, you know, that Ben Milliken could have gone on a podcast, he chose Luke Duncan. Now, we understand Luke Duncan and him have known each other for a while. Of course, they had their own falling out of sorts, whatever that means, you know, years past, I think, or disagreements, which we all do. I mean, you know, that's the way it is. And but he chose that. And here's the thing that you should take away from that. And the reality is, for someone who can't say anything because there's an ongoing investigation and he still has a court date coming up in February, why would you say what you're saying? Like, you can't say anything, but then you go on a podcast and talk about it. You talk about the case. And not only do you talk about it, you misrepresent a lot of what the facts are. Like, opinions are opinions. Okay, and we all have them, and I have them, okay, clearly, okay? But there are certain facts that you just can't get around no matter how you want to get around them, and you want to spin it. And unfortunately, my takeaway from the Luke Duncan podcast was Luke wasn't really going to hold him accountable. And that's the problem with a lot of what we have on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of different segments of YouTube. There are people on YouTube that want to be buds, that want to be friends, that don't want to rock the boat, that just want to be a vessel for where anglers can come on and anglers can do what they want to do, and that's fine. But at the same time, how it's projecting is there were so many questions that could have been asked Ben Milliken in that podcast that just weren't. Like follow-up questions. Like, are you interviewing him, or are you just giving him a platform to basically spin things that aren't based in fact? And what I mean by based in fact, it's factual, like in the actual court documents. And again, those court documents were released by Cerebral Tackle on his video. I don't need to release them again. I don't need to regurgitate that. I'll just direct you to there. It went through all of the affidavits, all of the warrant, all of the stuff, the interview with the game warden, right? Did Luke Duncan interview the game warden? Did he call the game warden that Ben Milliken basically threw under the bus in the interview, like beforehand, like to understand, like, okay, well, what's really this about? What was the charge? What was the timeline? How did these things go down? What was said? Ben Milliken basically, based on the game warden's assessment, self-incriminated himself. That's why he was charged. Nobody targeted him. He self-incriminated himself in his conversation and interview with Texas officials. That's a fact. He admitted to catching the fish without a license. He admitted that. That is a fact. That is a crime. Okay? To fish in any state in this country without a fishing license, to my knowledge, with the exception of the various fishing free days that states have, is in fact a misdemeanor in virtually every state. And you just give him a pass. Give him a pass, right? Okay. But did he really take accountability? Like, really? Like, it was all like laughter and jest, like, yeah, I was an idiot. Okay, but if he just owned that from the start, when he started this, post-December, being arrested, coming out, accepting responsibility for the fact that he screwed up, and he's an idiot. Right? We're all idiots. I said this before in my video when I talked about this when it broke in December. We're all idiots. We do idiotic things. We do stupid things. We don't all have to be perfect. Like, just own it. Like, look, man, I freaking didn't realize my license expired. I've been fishing without a license since September. You'd think he would know. When he goes into the diatribe of, like, I've got 13 licenses in 13 different states because I'm a Bassmaster elite angler, and, I can't be expected to, like, be able to keep track of all my... Yeah, you can be expected to keep track of all of your licenses, Ben, because you're a professional. Or are you? That's the problem that people have. That the problem that most people have right now is people that just don't live up to the expectation that people my age, and it's mostly people my age. I understand that the young people don't give two shits, and I don't blame them. Like, it is what it is. But people that have been around, that have followed fishing, that subscribe, if you subscribed to Bassmaster Magazine as a kid, you understand what I'm talking about. If you're like 50 or older, or 45 or older, you understand what professionalism is. You understand what it's like when people behave in a professional manner. And you can name all of those anglers. Davey Height, Danny Brower. You can go all the way back. Rick Clunn. You can go all the way back. Kevin Van Dam. We know who the people are who are professional. Now contrast those people and how they carried themselves on and off the water and on camera to this new generation. Okay? That's where the problem lies is. Just own it and be like, hey man, I totally screwed up. I want to do something. I want to do something for Texas. I want to do something for the community. I got to do whatever. I'll do free fishing, whatever, free fishing days with kids. Do like for, about the importance of getting fishing licenses, importance of fishing properly, all the good stuff. There are tons of things you could do, right? Like, seriously, like, there are tons of things you could have done to spin this from a public relations standpoint into that. But that's not what Ben wants to do. What Ben wants to do, clearly, is attack other people. And people who are on YouTube are kind of like, and I've talked to like dozens of people, we're like, you're going to attack us, people on YouTube that are basically just covering the story. But what I find is very interesting, and he can attack me, that's fine, because I'm an easy target. But I would think real twice about attacking people like Cerebral Tackle and Get Your Fish On and other podcasts who actually have the documents, actually have the factual documents, the court documents and everything in front of them, who know the facts, who've actually interviewed people, called people, followed up with people, talked with attorneys, right? I could talk to Texas Wildlife, but and I could get that information, and you can get a lot of information via each individual state's information acts that will allow you to get public information from everybody concerned in terms of public record. He's a public figure. I mean, he can't run from that anymore. He's a public figure. If he doesn't want to be a public figure, go back to YouTube content creation, fishing for double digits, and be a content creator extraordinaire. I mean, he already is, right? Just do that. Like, don't be a professional bass angler because you're a public figure. A lot of people are going to look to you. A lot of kids are going to look up to you. A lot of your platform is your platform, right or wrong. Embrace that fact. But don't spin things to where I've seen things on YouTube that just don't make any sense at all. Like, from a person who's currently being tried for a misdemeanor. Okay, you're going to court. I think it's silly and it's funny and it's whatever, but you're still going to court, man. You got arrested. You got fingerprinted. You got booked in Nacogdoches County. It's not like this, this little thing. Okay, it's still a deal. You can laugh it off all you want. And what message does that send to all the kids that are watching, the Bassmaster Elite Series, right? That a guy they idolize, or a guy that's a rock star in fishing, basically just dismisses law enforcement. Basically just tries to throw game wardens and conservation officers and Texas Wildlife and the ShareLunker program. It's their problem. I mean, they didn't do their due diligence. They didn't do enough. They didn't tell me that my license was expired. That's their responsibility, right? That is the bullshit victimhood mentality that's being reinforced with our young people right there. That it's somebody else's responsibility to keep you informed that your license has expired. I mean, anyone my age thinks that's absolutely freaking absurd. And maybe maybe we're out of touch. Maybe we're just old school guys, and the time has passed us by, and we don't know what we're talking about and whatever. And maybe all the MFers are right, and we shouldn't have fishing licenses. But the fact of the matter is, we do. And the fact of the matter is, everybody has to buy one or don't go fishing. It's pretty simple. And when you get pinched for doing it, own it. Don't blame other people. He blamed Randy Blockett, and then he blamed other YouTubers. He didn't name the other YouTubers, but I mean, those of us in content kind of know who he's talking about. For clickbaits, for we're all trying to get clickbait. Dude, I don't give two shits about clickbaits. I don't care. This channel's not even monetized, so you don't even know what the hell you're talking about when you throw stuff out there to your audience of everybody on YouTube is just clickbaiting away to get. Most people don't care. Most people do this that I know because they care about the fishing industry. They care about the integrity of the sport. They want to see the sport grow. It's their passion. It's what they love. It's not their business. YouTube is your business, Milliken. That's where you made your name and your money from, right? So you see things through the lens of views and clicks and monetization and engagement and all that. You see the world that way. Most people that I know on YouTube in the fishing industry, in the fishing space, don't even have monetized channels. They don't see it that way. They do it because they're passionate about it and they love the sport, and they want to engage with the sport in the same way that everybody likes to engage with NFL and Major League Baseball and podcasts for those sports. It's a fandom kind of thing. Now, do some people take it to the extreme? Okay. But I don't know any of these people that are running for clicks. You and Randy have made your name off of clickbait. Okay, both of you guys have been professional anglers. Randy in the past, you're current. Those kinds of things, matter, and people pay attention. You have gravitas, you have influence. What you do with that influence is how you're going to be judged. And right now, go on Cerebral Tackle's podcast. Go on, be interviewed by Steve at Get Your Fish On. Go on a legitimate podcast that actually has the facts, that is actually going to ask you the questions. But the problem is they're going to ask you the questions you don't want to answer. You want softballs, okay? But when people have the facts and people have put out the facts that are the facts, you go after them, right? And attack them as in their motivation, and that they just want to tear people down. Look, nobody's motivation that I know of is to tear you down. It's to report what is happening. And Ben's been fueling that upon himself, and then to complain about it when you're fueling it. You're throwing the gasoline on the fire. You commented on various YouTube pages and provided even more absurdity based on the facts that that's not true. And the story has changed 3 times that I'm aware of since December. The yarn has changed 3 times, from Slick Johnson to saying he had a license, and this was just, and the misunderstanding, and I tried to buy a license to try to go on the app, and then it was like, oh, you got told to go on the app. There's tons of stuff that just keep going around and around. But what I think is very, very interesting is the open letter that I gotten more messages about in the last, day or so, is Cerebral Tackle. You can find that on YouTube. Go in the community tab. You have to use the community tab to see posts. Okay? So if you go on Cerebral Tackle and you hit the community tab, you can see posts, okay, which are not videos, they're posts. And you read his open letter to Luke Duncan. Open letter to Luke Duncan, where basically it breaks down what was said on that Luke Duncan podcast. Okay, and Luke's got a pretty big audience, okay? He really does, all right, in the fishing space. NPFL, Alabama Bass Trail. He's associated with that part of the country. He's got a significant following, which is no doubt why Ben went on that podcast. I wouldn't, but he wasn't asked he wasn't given any fastballs or any curveballs, is what I'm saying. He was allowed to basically project, how he wants people to perceive what happened, but that's not it wasn't based in facts, okay, that have been introduced, that sustained the warrant and the arrest, and now the trial that's coming. So it's very interesting here. Here are a couple points I picked up right away, just based on the baseline facts that I got to know with the conversations that I had with people down in Texas and with the ShareLunker program, and information from the ShareLunker program website, and the press releases from the ShareLunker program that began in February of 2024, okay, for the timeline, which it didn't really make sense based on what Ben was talking about, because in February, the Texas Wildlife, as I said in my previous video, released a press release about his catch, and it was like a few days after he caught it. So nothing was known in that 2 or 3 day window period that Ben made the claim that, they knew. No, they didn't know. Had they known that you caught that fish without a license, they certainly wouldn't put it in a statewide press release, okay, on the Texas Wildlife page, okay, on the Newswire in Texas, listing you and the 2 other people who caught legacy lunkers that day in February. And it was then in May, you're still mentioned. So from February to May, there was no reason to believe that there was anything unusual about Ben Milliken's catch. So that kind of goes counter to what was stated in that interview, in my opinion. Again, this is my opinion. And again, Ben Milliken is alleged to have defrauded the state, whether you believe that or not. He has admitted fishing without a license, not only to a state official, but also on podcasts. So, so we know he's guilty of fishing without a license. Okay, no big deal. What was known in terms of the actions he took after that, between February and September. February to September, okay? What did he do with that knowledge? That is what's going to be a critical aspect of the case in Texas. Okay, so the open letter to Luke Duncan. This is what Cerebral Tackle has responded to. It wasn't Sixth Sense's tackle being given away. That's true. Okay, anyone who can actually read English can clearly see it was Bass Pro Shop Shopping Spree. That's true as well. So when Ben made the statement that his company, Sixth Sense, which he's a partial owner for, gave $5,000 worth of, he gave $5,000, Sixth Sense gave $5,000 worth of tackle and gear to the program, but not all of that goes to this specific part of the ShareLunker program in terms of the legacy lunkers and the lunkers and all of that. Those baits were also given away at all various Texas Wild Parks and Wildlife events during the year, sponsored by the ShareLunker program, to, you know, kids and to other different things where they give baits away and all that stuff. So he makes it out to sound like he's fishing for his own baits, and that's just not factually accurate based on the ShareLunker program. From the ShareLunker program documents, it talks about a Bass Pro Shops fishing spree. Bass Pro Shops is one of the key sponsors of the tiers between the size catches that you get and in the lunker program. Remember, Legacy Lunker is that that size fish that they keep, that you donate to, where people were catching 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pounders. They don't donate those fish typically, okay? They take a picture, they submit it on the app, and it goes. But you can provide the fish to the ShareLunker program. That's what's called the legacy, okay? For the DNA and all that stuff. So, and that's what Ben did on this particular day. So he wasn't fishing for $5,000 worth of his own baits that he gave the ShareLunker program. That's just factually inaccurate based on what the ShareLunker program has stated publicly. He also made some comments about the ShareLunker program in terms of admissions, that he didn't really know how the ShareLunker program operated. He wasn't really, it was kind of like, you're participating in an event, you're a professional, your company actually sponsors the event as well, and you don't really know fundamentally all of the rules and everything that is the underlying tenets of that event. Again, I don't understand that. Like, it sends the message that don't read the rules, guys. Like, you don't have to read the rules. They don't matter. Like, that's the message that keeps getting sent out in terms of doing the right thing here. And so he clearly, that information that he provided was inaccurate, okay? There was only 3 minutes between the time of purchase of the license and the submission of the fish. And that goes to the timestamps on and the generated stamps online of when Ben Milliken submitted the fish on the app to the ShareLunker program and the time at which he completed his transaction for his license in Texas. Okay, 3 minutes difference. So catch fish, don't have license, fish, catch fish. Okay, submit, right? And then you can go ahead and listen to the Luke Duncan podcast for all that, whatever all that was of, I just wanted to go back out fishing, man. They were biting that day, and so you basically didn't take responsibility for anything because the fish were biting. And again, that's the message that you're sending, it's more about the catch. It's fine. That's the message that you want to project. Then that's who you are. And you're showing us who you are based on how you've handled the situation. Is you didn't think it was important enough to go through this process the right way because you need to get back out there because you had already caught a 10-pounder earlier in the day, and then you had caught the 13.15, and you wanted to go catch some more double digits. That's great. The lake is always there. You live in Texas. Based on your content, you pretty much fish these lakes all the time, with or without license. If you want to be judgmental about it, he didn't have a license since August 31st of 2023. So he fished for 5 or 6 months without a Texas fishing license. So clearly, based on his content, he fishes a lot on the Texas lake. So I don't understand that logic, that's an excuse of, well, I didn't have time, I didn't whatever. Okay, clearly, whatever. And then Cerebral Tackle goes on to, his attorney isn't worth a $2 bill if he hasn't had himself more acquainted with the Wildlife Violator Act compact. Good point. The type of charge has nothing to do with the compact. Google in 2 seconds of research can tell you that. Fishing without a license is a misdemeanor in almost all 50 states. Truth. Again, ask Rector how that worked out for him, and if they take his license as part of a probation deal. It's gone in at least 4 other states as well. It's still a misdemeanor. It's the punishment and why, not the charge. Right. Basically, it's important. He goes, it's funny, he says, if it's more important to you to get along with people than to tell the truth. Now, this is at Luke Duncan. If it's more important to get along with the anglers, okay? If it's more important to have a podcast where you're just inviting your friends in or people that, because you want to get close to them and you want to be, I don't know. That's what this is getting. That is a problem. If you're going to give softball questions to people who are involved in some pretty professionally altering, potentially, that it does say more about you than it does about everybody else. Because I believe in these people. I believe these people that if Ben went on these people's podcast, he would not get softball questions. Like, no one's enamored with Ben Milliken that suddenly he walks on water. Like, not even in Texas. As I've said before, the majority of people that you talk to in Texas have a very low opinion of him. And so I don't know why that is. I don't live in Texas. I'm just going on what we're getting and what we're seeing in the comments and what we're seeing when people reach out and what people are saying. That there's a lot of other things going on. Now, do I believe there's more to this story? Yes. And what I believe there more to this story doesn't have anything to do with Ben Milliken in terms of the day in question. It has to do with why this all happened after September and who pushed for it to happen. Now, that may end up being nothing at all, but it just seemed very, and sometimes you can tell a lot more about the people who aren't talking than the people who are. Because how is it that this event is being diminished by the insiders, by the very people who are very close to Bassmaster, very close to the organization, who have podcasts, okay, who have access? They haven't really, but yet these same people had no problem going after JT Tompkins, no problem going after Trey McKinney, no problem going after off limits periods, or during Bass Opens, people got information about certain lakes, and they had no problem in season going after those stories rather quickly, okay? And yet this particular story, those particular podcasts don't seem to want to touch this story. And it's been kind of preemptively put out there. Oh, it's because it's not a real story. Is it? It's not a real story that potentially a Bassmaster Elite Series angler could lose his fishing license in Texas, to which he would not be able to fish the Bassmaster Classic in March. That's not a story. That's not. But yet, an angler who didn't have updated insurance on his boat, who gets DQ'd, that story rises to the level of a full 2-hour podcast. It begs a lot of questions, guys, in terms of where we are really at. Not only on podcasting and reporting and news, but where we are at professionally with a lot of these people. It just seems the standards keep just getting lower and lower and lower for people. And it's like Cerebral Tackles is, man, do better. Like, I mean, do you not owe it to an audience? I try to be authentic. I try to be original. I try to be my opinion. I'm not reeling in Randy Blockett onto here. I'm not, or Ben Milliken. I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I talk to people, reach out to people. If someone wants to come on and talk about something they want to talk about, that's fine. You know what I mean? But like, in terms of if you're going to raise the question about the arrest, why are you not asking the right questions? And if you know that's going to be, and it's in your title, you know you're going to ask him those questions. Why would you not get your facts straight first? Like why? And that goes to anybody. I'm not taking a shot at anyone. I'm just saying that, like, you know this is going to be the topic. Why would you not do a lot more due diligence on having the information to be able to push back on, because you really don't know what someone's answer is going to be, to push back on them, right? And then instead, in this particular instance, Luke Duncan allowed Ben Milliken to have a platform to take shots at Randy Blockett and to take shots at other YouTube content creators. And then Luke doubled down on, people are copying his podcast. Well, okay, and then not really follow up on why do you think, maybe ask the hard question, like, Ben, do you think that maybe your YouTube channel has been stunted? Because that's what Ben said in the video, in the interview, that he felt like his YouTube channel has been stunted, and the growth isn't there anymore. Do you think that these things have anything to do with that? Do you think that people's perceptions of you may have changed since last year, since his first year on the Bassmaster Elite Series? It's one thing, we got to remember where Ben Milliken was before he entered the Elite Series. Okay, at the top of the game, like him, I mean, there are very few, other than like I said before, like Tactical Bassin and people like that. He was very, very like in the YouTube universe, right? The Tubiverse, right, in terms of content creation. And then he won in 2023 and finished in the Bassmaster Opens to qualify for the Bassmaster Elite Series. And then he came in with a rookie class. I think there were 10 anglers in that rookie class. Okay, so part of that stunning that growth may have been his performance on the Elite Series. Like, there was a lot of anticipation of how he would perform on the Elite Series. Okay, same as we do with quarterbacks drafted number one in the draft. Look at Caleb Williams, right? Most people after 1 year would be like, that's not good. How do people feel about Ben Milliken on the Elite Series after 1 year? I believe he finished 9th. I think he finished 9th out of 10 rookies. So 8 rookies, 7 or 8 rookies. He either finished 8th or 9th. I think it's 9th. So 7 or 8 rookies finished ahead of him in points. No one talks about that, okay, in the Rookie of the Year race, because of what happened at the top of the Rookie of the Year race on the last event of the season, more or less, and with what happened, with everything that happened at that event and the crazy, chaotic event that was at the end of the year. I believe that Chris Johnston won. He finished 8th or 9th. He didn't even finish in the top 25% of the rookie class. Okay, so in terms of like the NFL, you would be like, in terms of quarterbacks, of 10 quarterbacks drafted in the first round, right? You'd be written completely off. You would be written off after your rookie year, okay, as a number 1 pick for a team. You'd be like a bust, right? I'm not saying that he's a bust. I'm saying, but we know how that happens in other sports. And then I think he finished 27th or 28th overall. So his overall finish was basically in about the top 27%. So he finished in the top 27% on average of everybody on the tour, everybody on the series. But of the rookies, he finished at the bottom of the rookies. So, but no one wants to ask those questions. Like, could that be part of why your growth has been stunted? Because it's performance based. It's less people are tuning in now. Like, everybody had, and that's not a slap at him, it's just everybody had this high expectation he was going to win events, that he was going to, he was going to come in, and then you had someone like a Trey McKinney, who most people didn't even know about at all. Look at his YouTube. Go back and look in 2022 to 2023, what Trey McKinney's YouTube footprint was, what his Instagram footprint and Facebook footprint, so all your socials. Go back and look at what that young man's footprint was on social media compared to Ben Milliken. And yet, he hit it out of the park as a rookie. Okay? And that's why the powers that be went after him. Okay? Because it was unexpected. It was unexpected. And there are rookies coming into Bassmaster Elite Series this year that are every bit as good as last year's rookie class. So it's going to be interesting to see how things pan out. But that could have, that's the line of questioning for Ben, to like have him like, do you believe that, like, could it be a performance based? Could your growth have been stunted because you didn't perform as well as people expected, or the fact that you got arrested, and that's negative publicity towards you, and maybe you've lost a lot of fan or people watching videos and all of that because of that situation in the last few months. I mean, there are any number of ways that you could have gone to broach that subject. It just didn't happen in terms of pushing back on what was being said. And I understand wanting to give someone who's maybe a close friend, or a friend at least, a platform to be able to, project. But if they're misrepresenting facts, as Cerebral Tackle and others have pointed out about this, it begs the question, what was really the intent of the interview? Because there were a lot of things in that interview that were, definitely misrepresented, based on the facts, based on what is in, quote unquote, the file of evidence, and that has already been reported and already been released by the county and by Texas Wildlife and by the ShareLunker program. And, Cerebral Tackle has made the assertion that, that the facts are the facts, and these shiny objects over here are just false information meant to continue this, this notion somehow that Ben is the victim in all of this. And he's not. Okay? He's not. He admitted to fishing without a license. He's admitted to submitting a fish on a state app into a program that does provide financial benefit, reward, one shape or another, in terms of a shopping spree at Bass Pro Shops to up to $10,000, $5,000, but potentially $10,000, because it's two different $5,000 for drawings, from what I understand, knowingly that he didn't have a license. So I don't know how you get around that. The more the story changes, is the admission of fishing without a license, and then now the fact that the admission of submitting it. I purchased my license and then I submitted the fish to the ShareLunker program. Well, you knew when you did that you didn't have a valid license when you caught the fish. And I think that's the biggest question that people have about this. It isn't Texas Wildlife. It isn't ShareLunker program. It isn't the misdemeanor charge. It's, how does a professional in the Bassmaster Elite Series do that? Like, how do you knowingly, admittedly knowing you caught the fish without a license, and then admittedly, publicly, that you found out you didn't have a license when you caught the fish, and then you went about submitting that fish, allegedly, anyway? Like, that's the bigger question that people are talking about at the ramp and online and in Facebook groups and in the comment section. It's like, wait a second. How does a professional angler do that again? Like, how do you, instead of focusing on, like, why would I do that? My company supplied all the rewards. I wouldn't, that's not an excuse for why you did that. Like, what was it that made you do that? And what happened with what's going on in Texas the last couple of years that has kind of set the stage for why somebody would do that? Like, and that's really where we're at. So just check out that community tab on Cerebral Tackle. You can kind of follow it, get your fish on as well. Some of the other podcasts, that are actually covering, reporting, not clickbaiting. They're reporting on the documents that have been released and the information and the interviews that have happened with the game warden, with the ShareLunker program, the public releases that most people may not have access to aren't coming to them, but so they're compiling this information and providing it to their audiences, and people can either click on those videos or not. That's the beauty of the format. It's up to the individual to decide whether or not they want to watch a video or not. Like, you know. And so, you know, and people build their own audiences, and they feed their own audiences with the information to inform their audiences. No, none of these guys are trying to go and poach Randy Blockett's audience or poach the MFers to come over, and you know, I don't understand that whole mindset. And the only way you would have that mindset is if you're just so, you know, dug into YouTube as your business model that everything is seen through the lens of clicks and views and monetization, and that's how you see it. When most people on YouTube don't see that, I mean, I don't, that don't see like it that at all. That just want to have, you know, be informative, talk fishing, inform their audience, you know, build up, you know, those people that want to follow your channel, want to hit that notification bell, that want to like stay up to date on other people's opinion, broad perspectives. You know, most of the people that I know aren't into that. They're not into like getting paid. Nobody's bills are getting paid by YouTube that I know of. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there on YouTube that there are. We all know that. But at the end of the day, it's just fishing. And people just want integrity. They want integrity in the sport. They're tired of cheaters. They're tired of rules violators. They're tired of people living in the gray. But more importantly, they're tired of people playing the victim anytime something happens, instead of owning it and manning up and owning it. Like, I mean, that's how this all would have been resolved. I don't think he would have been, you know, I don't think things would be even going to trial if he just publicly accepted responsibility for it, owned it, and did something for community, and just said, look, man, this was totally ridiculous, and my company's going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and, you know, I paid my ticket. It ended there. I believe that. I think that how you respond to these things also results in you're going to get what you deserve. You know, from a PR standpoint. And that could be what has stunted his growth. And could be what continues to stunt his growth. Especially if he can't fish for a year in Texas. Because there is a possibility, guys. I don't know what that number is. Some people say 60-70% possibility based on other people, precedent in the legal profession. You know, some people say it's as high as 80% chance of him having his license suspended for at least a year in Texas, based on this. Okay, again, I don't live in Texas. I don't know what that. I know there are simple research, 5 minutes. There are plenty of cases in Texas where people have had their license suspended for up to a year for violating this particular law and for violating fishing without a license laws. And you have to remember, it may carry a lot of weight that in this particular case, the angler fished for 5 or 6 months without a license and also generated monetization while doing so on YouTube. That is a big, big question with the attorneys in terms of that, how they broach that area, because it's different if it's just you or me. Okay, you know, you're just going out and, you know, but I mean, if you were generating income while fishing via your content, one could argue that's no different than the commercial fisherman who's going out and catching fish and then selling those fish for income. This situation is you're generating income by fishing state waters in Texas for your audience and monetization on YouTube without an actual permit to do so. Okay, so it's like not having a business license and actually like conducting business. Okay, that's very frowned upon. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this works out. All right, guys.